Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted that number 1 would be the Fantastic Four, First Steps. Number 2 would be Superman. Number 3 would be Jurassic World, Rebirth. Number 4 would be I Know What You Did Last Summer. And number 5 would be Smurfs. And I got 4 out of 5 of my predictions right. So very close. A lot of you did get your predictions right for this weekend, so congratulations. Some of you we're kind of guessing the same way that I was, not expecting a certain movie to dip out of the top 5 and not even take out what was the number 5 prediction with it. So let's just dive into what happened in the overall top 10. Number 1 was obviously the Fantastic Four, First Steps. A lot of eyes on this film. This is kind of like the culmination of what people were saying was like going to be a really busy July. And even though it's not over yet, but it's kind of, the last big movie that was going to be coming out. It was Jurassic, Superman, now this. And wondering if these movies could all kind of coexist. And obviously we still have a ways to go. It's not just, they're going to be out in July. It's also how they carry on, not just for the weeks, but, the end of next month and, potentially September if they can last through there. I feel like I heard something about Jurassic hitting digital sometime in August, but maybe that was incorrect. Either way, though, it does appear, though, the top 3 are obviously these 3 movies, but it does appear, though, that, they've each had, good openings, and right now they look to be in pretty good shape overall. Fantastic Four now kind of joining that kind of trio there, making $118 million for the domestic opening weekend. Worldwide, that opens to a total of $218 million for their global debut. The initial production budget is allegedly $200 million, so you double that, you get to like $400 million. So if they can get to that point, they're in a steady break-even point. But I think the thing is, Brave New World got a little over $400 million. Quantumania, I believe, did the same, but it was kind of like, yeah, but for the kind of movies that they were promoting themselves to be, and comparing to other Marvel standards, they probably needed a little bit more. So it's like, they're in a pretty good spot right now as far as openings. Now it's completely up to, can they break a sort of kind of MCU curse? Not that every movie has, failed to hit 400 million or failed to get super high over it, but it does seem like, sometimes you can, open pretty well, but if word of mouth isn't positive enough, if momentum is not positive enough, you might dip out and just kind of barely get the break-even point. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I think, considering it's got a good cinema score rating and critics and audiences, are seeming to enjoy it, I think this one, will probably be able to, get past that certain stigma that I am presenting right now. I think, it has a solid chance of doing that, but you just never know. So I don't want to, make an assumption. Either way, as far as opening weekends for the other Fantastic Four films, and no, we're not counting the Roger Corman one because obviously there's no box office results for that. This opening weekend was $93 million over Four Stick, $62 million over the 2005 film, and $60 million over Silver Surfer. So obviously this is the highest opening weekend ever for a Fantastic Four film. And then for the MCU ones, it's kind of smack dab in the middle. So I have a couple examples here, just as far as number 1, recent MCU films, and number 2, just where it's at as far as how it compares to some other ones. It is $30 million over the opening weekend of Brave New World, $44 million over Thunderbolts, $12 million over Quantumania, $1 million over Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's about on par, might end up being a couple 100,000 over Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The opening weekend's also $4 million below Thor Ragnarok. So it's kind of, and a bit of, just to give a brief kind of look into where it's at as far as being smack dab in the middle, better than 2 recent MCU films this year, a little better than what Quantumania was doing about 2 years ago. But there's still some other highs out there. If you're below Thor Ragnarok, obviously there's plenty other ones. But being on par with Guardians 3 is not too bad. Let's just see if you can have the hold that movie did. And that movie, as far as praise, that was people and audiences were loving that, so emotional over it. People were just dying to go back out and see it again and talk about it and get the word out that this is an experience you need to feel. And I do wonder if Fantastic Four, despite, people seeming to enjoy it, I do wonder if it will have that same amount of holds. But, we'll see. We'll see. For the Fantastic Four domestic runs, it has already outgrossed Fantastic by $62 million domestically. It needs $13 million until it gets past Silver Surfer at this point. For the MCU, it's already cleared the Marvels by $34 million. It needs $16 million until the Credible Hulk. And then for the worldwide stats for Fantastic Four, it has outgrossed Fantastic here by $51 million. It needs $71 million until Silver Surfer. And then for the MCU, it is $19 million over the Marvels, and it needs $47 million until the Incredible Hulk. So same kind of movies, it's just kind of getting started, so we'll continue to see how it goes from here, but not a bad start for this film. Obviously, the MCU and just the Fantastic Four in general needed a solid win critically and financially, and I think they're in a pretty good space to, let that be known. Number 2 is Superman, continuing to kind of have the same kind of hold as last week, and we kind of talked about how it was like, mid 50% drop, which is kind of just, it's not like a great hold, it's just kind of on average, so it's a solid hold, but it's not like amazing, oh my gosh, never been done before. And they're kind of doing that again, another kind of mid 50% drop, and obviously Fantastic Four is out, so we'll continue to see in the next coming weeks if Superman can still cling on to dear life, or if maybe people are more interested in seeing Fantastic Four. Either way, it made $24 million, adding to a domestic total of $289 million. For DC films domestically, it has outgrossed the '89 Batman film by $37 million, and it's $31 million over the Lego Batman movie. Yes, that counts. It needs $2 million until it outgrosses the entire domestic run of Man of Steel, and that's pretty cool. And I know some people will probably be like, yeah, but actually if you adjust Man of Steel's for inflation, it's actually like a little over $400 million, so it's actually, it's still inching closer, but I understand it technically didn't if you adjust for inflation. But, if I have to spend time going through every fucking list and adjusting for inflation, I'm going to be here forever. It's just, you get it, you know what I mean? Like, that's the number that was reported. Yes, adjusted for inflation exists, but you do understand. You have to understand this is what I have to go off of. Oh God. Anyways, for Gunn domestically, it needs $44 million until it gets to the first Guardians film. Worldwide, it has crossed over the $500 million point now that it's at $502 million. So, they've doubled their $225 million initial production budget at this point, solid. And for Gunn worldwide, it needs $268 million until it gets to Guardians of the Galaxy. But then for DC films, it has outgrossed the '89 Batman film here by $90 million, and it's $62 million over Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Take that, bitch. I don't know why I came in so hard like that. I'm so sorry. It does need $159 million worldwide until it gets to Justice League. So maybe that's also a pretty big hurdle, I guess, as far as like, yeah, if you can outgross the really poorly received Justice League movie. But then again, that is still like, even though it disappointed, that is still the Justice League movie, and this is just, it's the start of the new DCU, but it is just Superman with some other characters that aren't they're not Batman, they're not Wonder Woman. So I don't know. We'll see. That'll be interesting to keep track of. But similar to, Fantastic Four, it's more interesting to see what's about to happen now that they're both in theaters at the same time. Even though we're still going to have more competition with the Naked Gun and the Bad Guys 2 next week. And so, I don't know, man. We'll just see. I hate to keep saying that, but, right now we're kind of still in the same position. They keep, inching on up, and that's pretty cool. For DC films, domestically and worldwide, it keeps rising up in the ranks, and that's also really cool to see. Number 3 is Jurassic World Rebirth, making $13 million, adding to a domestic total of $301 million. So for the Jurassic films domestically, it needs $75 million until it outgrosses Dominion, and then for Gareth Edwards, it needs $232 million until it outgrosses Rogue One. Worldwide, it is sitting at $718 million, so that places it $286 million away from Dominion. And then for Gareth Edwards, it needs $337 million until Rogue One. I am wondering, it is obviously still doing really well in theaters, and the rumor aside that it might be hitting digital soon, I'm not sure. I didn't look it up before recording, sorry. I do wonder if this is kind of where it's going to stop. Like, it might not outgross Dominion, and it's definitely not going to outgross Rogue One. I'm wondering if this is like the losing of momentum. Like, okay, we had Superman and now it's Fantastic Four, kind of game over as far as like blockbusters for a little bit. You know what I mean? In the theater, like Jurassic kind of came in a little bit before, but now, you got to share with these guys. You know what I mean? Like, might be curtains on that one. Not curtains, but just, it's going to wind down maybe a little faster. Either way, though, this franchise continues to, even if it doesn't hit a billion, this franchise continues to prove that people really want to see these damn dinosaur movies. And they make a lot of money. And especially the fact that this budget is not too ridiculously high. It's an initial production budget of 180 million. So they're actually like 2 million shy of quadrupling this budget already. So for the entire worldwide intake. So yeah, they're still in a pretty good spot here. Yeah, these three movies just coexisting, maybe they don't all hit a billion, but I mean, they're still doing pretty well. People are talking about, I think, even if I can jump back to Superman really quickly, even James Gunn was talking about, like, yeah, some other factors as far as like international box office, whatever, but he still was like, in truth though, there's a lot of what we're hearing about the numbers and all this and the like day-to-day holds throughout the week, like it's still positive news. So yeah, that's cool stuff, man. Number 4 is F1, making 6.2 million, adding to a domestic total of 165 million. It needs 7 million until it gets to Tron Legacy domestically. Worldwide, it did cross over the 500 million points, similar to Superman, making 509 million now. Obviously, Superman's about to clear because F1's been around a little longer, but hey, like 500 million is 500 million. It needs 945 million until it gets to Top Gun Maverick at this point, though. But still, it's about to outgross Tron Legacy for Joseph Kosinski domestically, so in both spots, it'll be his second highest grossing film, and that's pretty cool. And it was able to hold on and kick out I Know What You Did last summer, which was my prediction for number 4. Does that mean it's number 5? No, it was Smurfs. Making 5.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 22 million. It is still not outgrossed The Lost Village. It needs 23 million to do so, and then worldwide, it's at the funny number, 69 million, needs 128 million until it gets to The Lost Village. Neither of those domestic or worldwide comparisons matter when you compare it to the initial production budget being 58 million, and although they've crossed that initial threshold, they're not close to doubling it, which is the, at least our show standard, for if your movie is doing well. Maybe we should just stop with the Smurfs, man, but at the very least it did have a better hold, I guess, than number 6, which is I Know What You Did Last Summer, which didn't have like a crazy drop, just like 60%, which, yeah, that's not great, but I think a part of me was like seeing that cinema score being a C+, and having seen the film and seeing the weird direction they took that story, me going like, oh man, this could potentially plummet. And it didn't really. It did drop, but it didn't like, get to the 70s, which I think is where my other thought was. But it made 5.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 23 million. It is still behind I Still Know What You Did Last Summer by 17 million domestically. Worldwide, it is at 45 million, so it did outgross I Still Know What You Did Last Summer here by 5 million. It needs 80 million until the original film. And since this movie had an initial production budget of 18 million, obviously they have already doubled that. They need to get to 54 million at this point to triple it. So there you go. I did not care for this movie, but, considering the small budget that it had, it's going to have at least a small little bit of success, I guess. I don't know if this 100% means that they're going to dive right into a sequel. They might look at this as like, well, that's a little disappointing still. We were able to get lucky with 1, but I don't know if the audience will be there for 2, especially with that cinema score and the, reviews, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's just a bad movie. So I would, definitely, not care to see another one. I know I haven't reviewed it. I definitely have a lot to say. Taken some time off, not intentionally, just some other stuff going on. So hopefully I can get back to it because I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say about other movies as well, but, this one. Number 7 is How to Train Your Dragon, making 2.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 257 million. Worldwide, it is now at 605 million, so it's inching closer to the second film worldwide. Needs 9 million until it outgrosses that one. So it's not the highest grossing one in the franchise yet, but it is inching closer, and it'll probably get there next week. Number 8 is Eddington, making 1.6 million, adding to a domestic total of 8.1. Still no worldwide total for this thing, but the budget is still estimated to be 25 million. It did outgross Beau is Afraid by just a couple 100,000. It needs 19 million until Midsummer, though, and it's just not going to get there. At least it outgrossed the last Ari Aster flop. But it's weird because, like, this is, Ari Aster is talking in interviews, like, he's thinking about what his next movie could be, and also he's producing stuff as well. Like, this isn't, it doesn't seem to be like a make or break thing, like, oh no, Eddington and Beau is Afraid didn't do well back to back. It's like, no, I think people will still want to work with this guy. This guy is still gonna, have these ideas, and people are still gonna see these movies. Maybe it is just like a marketing thing, or like there's another way you can, promote him. I don't know. I don't know. Like if I feel like he's kind of like A24's poster boy. He's made 4 films with them now. It would be surprising if they didn't want to make more with him. But if not, I mean, shit, he could just hop over to Neon. He's produced some stuff with Bleecker Street. You know what I mean? Anyways, number 9 is Sayara. Did not know what this movie was, but it snuck into the top 10, making 1.4 million, adding to a domestic total of 3.3 million. This is estimated to be on a budget of 35 to 50 crore. So, I mean, and there's no other worldwide totals to like add up to here. So, I mean, hopefully this this is good overall. I don't really have much more to add. So let's just get to number 10, closing out the video. Oh Hi, a film with Molly Gordon and Logan Lerman, which I saw at like the Regal Mystery Movie, and I thought it was, pretty good. It's definitely not going to be for everybody. It's an interesting, quirky little comedy. But, it kind of surprised me in that way, too, how they decided to approach some things. But I liked it. It did make 1.1 million this weekend, though. I'm not sure what the budget of this is, but considering it mostly takes place in one location, I'm going to assume not much. So maybe they're already, like, close to breaking even, or maybe the budget was 500,000 and they already did that. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but still, check it out if you want to. It's pretty decent. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I do think will be the Fantastic Four First Steps once again. We'll see what kind of percentage drop-off it'll have, because we do have some competition. Number 2, I do think will be the Bad Guys 2, animated, family-friendly film based off of, like, the kids, comic graphic novel stuff. And also the first movie ended up doing pretty decently overall, and it's been 3 years. People, some families are excited to see this again, so maybe this one will do well. Number 3, I think will be The Naked Gun. I don't think it'll do better than Fantastic Four, but I do think there is a lot of hype over just a comedy like this in theaters, and obviously Naked Gun is a name, so I think it could get to number 3. Number 4, I think will be Superman, and then number 5, I think will be Together. This might be another wishful thinking one, but I want to hope that there are some people out there that are very interested in the marketing and seeing what exactly they're hiding, because I think when you watch the trailers, it's very clear they're hiding some, body horror stuff that they just cannot show you yet. Anyways, what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.